If you've ever felt stuck in your routines, overwhelmed by your to-do list, or just plain tired of not living up to your potential, this episode is for you. We're diving deep into the transformative power of habits with our amazing guest, Alessia Citro. Alessia is a certified life coach, serial entrepreneur, and the author of her upcoming book, Higher Self Habits, the scientific, strategic, and spiritual framework to get out of your own way for good. We'll talk about the secrets, struggles, and strategies that have helped Alessia reshape her life and how you can do the same. Learn why habits aren't just boring routines, but powerful tools for freedom and empowerment. Discover how to balance everything from marriage and parenthood to running a business and get practical tips for starting and sustaining habits that align with your higher self. Alessia, let's dive in. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so fun to connect with people. And I feel like, the podcast that's like my favorite part. I don't know about you because I know you have a podcast too.
Yes. No, I agree. It's like having these juicy conversations with people that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten to know, keeping the relationship going after that. It's so
Yeah,
fulfilling. And the fact that
it
people get to
is.
listen in and get value from it. It's
As
just the best.
exactly. And I just love learning from people, their stories, where they started, where they are now. I think habits are just like super important to talk about right now. And I would love to just like start there and really dive in. Maybe just start with like how and why habits are so crucial for our personal growth and how we can really change our lives with making better habits.
Habits are something that is so foundational that sometimes we're so close to it, we don't even realize that what we are doing is, in fact, a habit. Like you
Hmm.
probably brush your teeth with the same hand every single day, right? Try it with the opposite hand. See how funny that is, right? But
Oh,
that's a
right.
habit.
Hmm.
Whatever you do when you first wake up in the morning, that's a habit. Whatever you do before you go to bed, that's probably a habit too. It's like the architecture of our daily lives. And most of us are not giving any conscious thought to it.
Hmm.
I teach this because I need it. So let me just be very clear about that. I am so not a disciplined, structured, regimented person. That's why I've
Hmm.
had to become a student of habits and help other people with it because we always help with what we need, right?
Totally. Well, and many people think of habits, I think of just like implementing a behavior or a routine. And then I think like, okay, I'm going to start this new habit, right? Like I'm going to work out or I'm going to read for 10 minutes every morning. And then we might even start it and keep it for a little while and then we don't, right? Or if you're anything like me, like I'll just be honest because we're just going back to school soon. I'm pretty good when my kids are in school and then when like the holidays come or summertime comes, I'm like every habit I just formed like for some reason just went out of the window and now I'm struggling to do those habits that I know I need to do. So
Yeah.
maybe you could like educate us on like so I know you focus more on like a holistic approach to forming better habits in your life. And I think that's super important because a lot of people are probably thinking like, oh, it's just the behavior. Like a lot of people nowadays in the hustle culture, like wake up at 4 a.m. and get your workout and then read for 20 minutes at 5 a.m. And then, like you hear these kinds of things a lot. And then people go and like, oh, okay, that's all I need to do to end up being successful, but there's so much more depth to that. So can we kind of go down that path and talk about your approach to habits and why that's so important?
Yes, this is a forever soapbox of mine. So
Yeah.
I joke that, like, on my tombstone one day, it will say, stop shoulding on yourself.
Mhm.
So many of the habits that we try to adopt that don't end up sticking are ones that we think we should be doing that may or may not be the right ones for us.
Mhm.
So I give this example sometimes, and I want to just give like a big caveat that I am so grateful to the structure I'm about to kind of, can I swear on this show?
A little bit.
I'm going to kind of like shit on this structure a little bit, and I don't like mean to, but just take what I'm saying with the lens of gratitude for it and then
Mhm.
evolving past it. So Hal Elrod created this structure called the Miracle Morning. His story is incredible, by the way. He has like a documentary on Amazon Prime if you want to watch it. But he was like in the pits of despair, and he did all this research into like, what are the morning routines that can pull me out of this? And so I
Mhm.
abided by this for probably a year, and it was great until it wasn't anymore. So you do this routine called savers. So silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, scribing.
Mm.
You do each for 10 minutes for a total of 1 hour. Again, that was great. But especially as a woman, where every day is a little different because of our
Mhm.
cycles, doing the same thing day in and day out is probably not going to work for you. And it is a recipe for feeling bad about yourself when you
Mhm.
cannot bring yourself to do it or when you
Mhm.
fall off the wagon. So let's take this, and I'm just giving this as an example because these are all things that we like, quote unquote, know that we should be doing, right? That
Mhm.
might make for a great morning routine. What if instead of this like regimented approach to habits, with savers being an example, what if you instead converted it to like a menu that you could choose from based on what you're
Mhm.
feeling that day? Because there are some days I might not want to visualize, but I might want to read. Other days I might want to journal, right? Or and not exercise, or vice versa. So giving yourself permission to make things a bit more flexible. Now, backing up to why we have to take a holistic approach, I think sometimes we try to implement a new habit because we know someone who did it and they were super successful, but we're not connected to the deeper why for
Mhm.
ourselves.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it because someone else did it, like I love like success leaves clues, like, what are your mentors doing that's working for them? Yes. And give yourself permission to tweak it for you and deeply connect to why it matters, the intention behind it, because that's going to make you stick with it over the long haul. Right. Like if it's, oh, I'm going to try being vegan because someone I know told me it's great. That's not going to work.
Mhm.
Needs to be
Mhm.
deeper. Like, I deeply care about the welfare of animals, and I'm just riffing right
Yeah.
now. There has to
No,
be a
yeah.
much deeper connection, or it's not going to last.
Yeah. And how do we figure out like what habits would make sense for us? Like it sounds like do you go through your list of goals, like what matters to you the most? Like what is there a process that you go through?
The best thing you can do, in my opinion, is reverse engineer it. Where are you right now? Where do you want to be? And then what are the types of behaviors and activities that would help you
Mm.
become that version of you? I I tried to do this all through the lens of like the higher self, right? Like
Mhm.
when and I have a guided visualization that you can download on my website. It's in the book too. Getting familiar with who your higher self actually is, what she or he looks like, how they behave, how they act in the world, their states of being, all of that is going to help guide you. So, what would your higher self do?
Mhm.
When you look at where you want to go, let's just say that your goal is to have a seven-figure business. Where are you right now? What are the gaps to bridge? And then how can you break that down into tiny, tiny, tiny steps, baby steps, to make it a reality? And then you start very small with the habit creation. You don't try to do the whole enchilada. I have a whole
Mhm.
chapter in the book about, and it's out, by the way. I need to update the bio. It's not upcoming, it's out. Hit bestseller on Amazon, all that
Woohoo!
jazz.
Yes. Love that.
But like the go big, go home, all or nothing mentality, leave that at the door. Start really small and watch the results compound.
Yeah, I do see this a lot. I see people like, even stepping into like speaking and writing a book and all of that type of thing. I'm around a lot of people that are, going after it and doing those things. And I see people, they think like in 1 year, like they've got to write the book, go speak on stages, develop their own business. Like, and I'm like, oh man, like that's so much. You're going to burn out so fast.
Yeah.
And, I've kind of done it myself in the past as well. And I do it actually. I start with my goals like in January, right? And I'm like, okay, I have like these 5 main goals. But in June, it's summertime, right? We're entering into summer, and it's like my reflection time too. Of like, are the habits that I've created in the last 6 months, are those habits actually getting me to my goal that I created for the year? And then
Mhm.
I go back and I like look and take a truthful look at, the things that I'm actually doing. And I actually kind of retreat from everything. Now, I don't know if that is what's best or if that's just like a human behavior that I do from an avoidant, like, because I came from an avoidant attachment style. I talk about attachment styles a lot in like relationships, and I tend to avoid um like when things are like rough, or when I'm not meeting those goals, or my habits aren't getting me to where I want to go. Does that make sense?
Yep, that resonates.
So, okay. So I know you talk about like archetypes of each human behavior. What do you think about like how are we supposed to maintain the habits that we create? Like how do we make them work for us and getting where we want to go?
Yeah. Okay. I have
That
two
was a
parts
lot.
to
That
this
was a lot.
answer. No, I love it. Well, there's the cyclicality, which I definitely want to touch on. And then there's the underlying framework of every single habit, because people tend to, myself included, like you should know this about me. I love spontaneity. I hate to feel encumbered. I hate to feel obligated to do things. I like to go where the wind blows me, which sounds very antithetical to being a habits person, right?
Right, right.
So once I learned about this underlying architecture of every single habit, it gave me a lot of permission to design them in a way that suits me. So
Mhm.
every single human behavior has 4 components to it. And you can remember this with an acronym ACTS, ACTS. So the A is for ambition. Do you have the ambition to even do this behavior? Do you want to do it? Is the desire there? This is where most people rely, by the way. And I teach people to try to take it out of the equation because motivation is such a fair weather friend.
Mhm.
Great example of this, January 1st, you got your New Year's resolutions or, whatever. Maybe it's losing weight and going to the gym. You go for 3 weeks and then it falls off a cliff. There's actually, now that we all have like wearables and, track our exercise, like there's data now to back up the fact that by the 3rd week of January, people aren't working out, right?
Mhm. Yep.
So we don't rely on ambition. Okay. The next piece is C for capability. Can you do the behavior or not? And within that is the nuance of like what's making it hard to do and what could be making it easier to do. You want to remove all the friction possible to make it as easy as possible. And for those of us wired to think that like something has to be hard for it to count, this can be kind of a hard pill to swallow.
Mm.
Okay, the
Mhm.
third piece of it is trigger. You need to be prompted or cued to do a behavior before it becomes automatic. So
Mm.
maybe that is putting your vitamins in a pretty dish where you're going to see it in the morning and remind yourself, cue yourself, prompt yourself to take them, just as an example. Alternatively, if you want to break a habit, remove the prompt or trigger.
Mm.
Like if you're seeing Doritos when you open up the pantry, that's prompting or cueing you to eat them. Get it out of your house,
Remove the
hide it in the back of
Doritos.
the cabinet. Yeah.
Yeah. Or
So then
like
the final,
I'll do actually that with my fridge, right? Like I'll prep veggies or fruit so that when I open the fridge, they're prepped and ready for me to eat instead of sitting in the box in the drawer.
yes. And actually you're touching a couple things with that too. You are playing into the ambition you already have. You want to eat that way, and you're making it very easy to do. You're enhancing
Mhm.
the capability as well as prompting yourself. So you're checking
Mhm.
3 boxes.
Very
The
cool.
final one I see a lot of people bristle at, and I'm looking at you, high achieving type A women. Yes, that's me too. I get it.
Mm.
Satisfaction. Are you
Mm.
celebrating when you do it and hacking your brain's reward system? Because when you do a little celebration of like, oh, I remember to do it. Think of like if you were to roll up a piece of paper and toss it in a trash can and you sink it. What's like the
Mhm.
little celebration you do when that happens? Like
Put up your
do that
hands.
every time
Woo!
you do a desired habit. And that will wire it in as pleasurable and you'll be more
Mm.
likely to keep doing it.
Love that.
So that's part of it. Can I talk about the cyclicality real quick too? Because you
Please
were talking
do.
about like January, I'm like all up on it. And
Yes.
then June, I'm like, eh. Okay,
Yeah.
that's not you being a weirdo or avoiding. I mean, maybe there's like parts of avoiding, perhaps. I don't know. But like there's this cyclicality that I think we all need to begin tapping into and honoring more,
Okay.
especially for women, right?
Yes.
We have a cycle that, let's just say it's 28 days for most people.
Mhm.
The phases of your cycle are like the seasons of the year. They're all different, right? Like when you're in your
Mm.
follicular, which is right after you had your period, you are more inspired. You're having more ideas. You're wanting to initiate things. When you're in
Mm.
your ovulatory, you're like the social butterfly. That's when you should be going to events, speaking, selling your offers. When you're in your luteal, you might want to burn your business to the ground. You might just want to be like left alone and like nailing, like hammering out all the admin stuff that you've been neglecting. You're probably more detail oriented,
Yeah.
maybe not as social. And then when you're on your period in your menstrual phase, you just want to like rest, recharge, reflect, and then it
Mhm.
starts over again. And you can think of it like follicular as spring, ovulatory as summer, luteal as fall, and then menstrual as winter, right? And if you look
Mm.
at your year or your month, it's kind of the same way, right? Like you probably are acting a lot different in the winter than you are in the summer.
Yeah.
However, our society has made us feel like we need to be in spring and summer all the time. And like that's just not the case.
Mm.
So I think you're onto something with like the rest and recharge period because we can't be energizer bunnies as much as I would like to.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I love that you're talking about habits as like a menu in particular. I think that that is like kind of mind opening for me and probably other people listening as well. Like, I think that's so important. I'd love to hear like, can you walk us through kind of like what it sounds like your day because you're more of a spontaneous person, and I love that. Like, how do you still have like habits that are important to you and being your higher self and who you want to be in that person and what she is and what she dresses like and what she feels like with having that menu of things? Can you like kind of go over that in your own life?
Yes. Okay. And it's been trial and error. And
Okay.
just know, like anyone listening, and you too, Jillian, like it's going to be the same
Hmm.
way. It's going to be trial and error, figuring out what works for you and what doesn't, and knowing that every day is going to be a little different. For me, it's been finding baseline. Like, what are the things that I have to do to take care of myself and feel good? And then what are the things that I can layer on, capacity permitting? And actually, a really helpful way to view this is through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, if you're not familiar with it, the base of this pyramid, so there's 5 layers in the pyramid. The base is like the things that keep you alive. So, are you hydrating enough?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have got to get a habit of drinking enough water. I don't know if that's, 12 ounces for you or if that's a gallon. Find what works and where you feel your best, right? With that, too, are you getting enough sleep? Because
Hmm.
if you're not, and maybe you're in a stage of life where you aren't, if you got a newborn, this is maybe not the time for personal development. You just need to survive right now. And that's okay.
Right. Yeah, we give that to you for sure.
Yeah. But, there's this pressure. Oh, I need to be, no, just go in your cocoon and just like take care of yourself. You're surviving right now. You're not thriving. That's okay. We love you anyway. We get it.
Hmm. Amen.
So, like looking at baseline things like, am I eating the right nutrition more or less? Am I drinking enough water? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I, moving my body even somewhat? So, those are like baseline things that I do day in, day out. And then up from that, it's like more stability, safety needs, right? So, a lot of this isn't going to apply if you live in a safe, area. You're not worried about people breaking into your house. You don't really need to worry about this too much, but it might look like, how do I stabilize my finances, right?
Hmm.
Something like
Hmm.
that. Next, we go up to love and belonging. One of the things that I love to do is meeting new people, talking about like the deep stuff. I always joke that like I'm allergic to small talk when I'm at a dinner party. It's like, tell me about your childhood trauma. You know what I
Same,
mean?
same.
Yeah. But, there are certain times of the month I'm not going to want to be as social. I purposely try to schedule things for like follicular and ovulatory phases, which if you can do that, great. If you can't, it's not always going to be perfect. But I'll add that in, time permitting and capacity permitting. And then the rest is like self-actualization and self-esteem needs. Am I doing things day in, day out that I know I'm good at, that make me feel self-respect, self-confidence? And am I pursuing the highest version of me? Some days you're only going to be able to do the water. You might not be getting good sleep. You might not have time to move your body. That's okay. But like find your baselines and then know what are the things I can layer in as often as possible so that I can reach this higher version of me. But look at where
Hmm.
you're weak Look at where you're strong, pull from the strength to shore up the areas of opportunity and watch it compound.
Yeah. Well, so we love to like get real and we talk about, not just the good parts, but the struggles too. Do you mind sharing like something that you've struggled with and how habits played a role in overcoming that?
The thing that drops in right away is perfectionism. I
Mm,
am still working so hard to unwind that.
mm-hmm.
I think it's like a really, really big struggle for me because I've got an immigrant dad, and and I'm a firstborn daughter. And I think that that can make for a very interesting combination in terms of like people pleasing and achievement and like tying your worth
Mm-hmm.
to, accolades and pats on the back. And so that's been something I've really needed to unwind. I think that's also part of what has drawn me into the habits thing because, I was someone not that many years ago that was working with a trainer, following this nutrition plan to the letter. And then I had one meal that was not ideal and I just stopped completely. Wasn't perfect anymore. I'd screwed up. What's the point of even doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Saying that out loud, it sounds ridiculous, but I'm willing to bet that anyone who can relate to the other things I'm saying has probably had something similar where, oh, this wasn't perfect. Let me just stop altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's like when is it when is it okay for me to just show up with half of my ass? That's still more than someone else's full ass, right? Like be okay with
Yeah.
that. It doesn't need to be like all out every day. That's going to keep us from really becoming the best version of us and just yeah, learning for that perfect isn't really even out there, like it's not
Mm-mm.
real.
Yeah.
How can I just embrace imperfection? That's
I
been
just
really difficult.
I think this is so good. And I really hope people are like just listening to what you're saying because I'm like, I think it's really mind opening and almost like gives ourselves a hug. Like that's how I feel. Like it feels like it's giving myself a hug for like, those habits that we said, like we like, oh, I'm going to eat this in the morning. I'm going to work out for an hour. And, by 3 months, I'm going to look like this, and then there is times where you fall off the wagon and you beat yourself up and you just, oh, I failed. And you don't ever get back up the next day and do it again, or you'll wait a long period of time and it takes a while for us to get up our courage again and start over. And I
Yes.
think with like the way that you explain habits is really crucial for getting rid of the shame, getting rid of the guilt of not showing up like with that one habit you said you were going to, but like giving yourself the permission to just be human and give yourself that compassion that
Yes.
we need in order to be our best selves and wake up the next day and like crush it.
Yes. And you know what? There are some habits that you might really want to do every single day, but that you may not be able to. So, how can you break them down into like the microscopic version? And I'll give you an example that
Yeah.
when I first heard this, I was like, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard in my life. But turns out there's a lot of wisdom in it. Um, I think I read it in Atomic Habits by James Clear, which was like my gateway drug into all of this. So, shout out
Right.
to
I'm
James
sure.
Clear.
Yeah, for sure.
He says something in that book to the effect of like, let's say your desired habit is like walking a mile every day. Your baseline version of that habit is putting your shoes on. Nothing more, nothing less.
Mm,
And when I read that, I was like, that is so dumb. You just put your shoes on. Okay, but here's the brilliance in it. Most days, you're probably going to at least walk to the mailbox, right? Or maybe down the block and back. Other days, if you can't, you're still maintaining the neural wiring in of the habit because that's the first step to doing the longer walk, right? So look at the like this is such a good example too. Like if you're traveling, what can you do to just like maintain the wiring of the habit that you want to do without actually doing all of it?
hmm Yeah. And flexibility is so key to like reserving our own energy and being
Yes.
more resilient, right? Like we have to learn how to be flexible in situations where like, you're not going to do that exact thing, but you might be doing something similar. Like for me, I've learned this a lot in working out. There's days where I'm like, I really don't feel like running 3 miles, but I do feel like a walk outside in nature. And
Yeah.
so instead of beating myself up that I didn't run the 3 miles, I still go for a walk in nature and I feel great. and I
Yeah.
still got like a workout in. Was it intense? Was it high intensity? No, but I feel good. And that's what keeps me healthy, and I had more energy to then show up to all the other things that I needed to do that day.
The other thing about that is so powerful is that you are keeping a promise to yourself. And that is what I think enables you to do all these other things throughout the
Mhm.
day and in your life, because you now have the self trust of like, hey, I couldn't do 3 miles, but I went for a walk. I showed up for myself. I can trust
Mhm.
myself with the little things. So now I can
Yeah.
trust myself with the bigger things too.
Huge, which goes back to like hierarchy of needs that you were talking about, right? Like that safety. Can I trust myself, right?
Yeah.
And doing the things. I love that. I want to also go into, because I think, for those of listening that are like me as well, like, being a mom or a parent, um, entrepreneur, wanting to do many different roles, is hard, right? It's hard to balance everything. Is there any habits that have been crucial in managing these complexities in your own life that you could
Oh,
share?
yeah. Especially right now. Like before we hit record, I was like, let me lock my office door because I've got a 5.5-year-old daughter with no boundaries when I'm recording.
I know we were just talking about this, and I'm like, oh, girl, me too. I have my 7 and 9-year-old are probably going to be coming in here. I'm like, she did this.
Yeah, that's why I think we're done at 1 because I'm like, it's already feels like a circus. So okay, that if you're managing a lot of roles and like spinning a lot of plates, the first thing I would urge you to do is look at all your roles holistically. So, okay, let's like zoom way out. What are some of my roles? I'm a coach, I'm a business owner, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a neighbor, I'm a community member of my school. What are like, or of her school rather. What are things that absolutely need to get done? Where do I have to show up? And what are things that are like nice to haves? Like, is me being a really considerate neighbor and like bringing in my neighbor's trash if they're traveling something that needs to be at the top of the list? Well, maybe not if the other areas are demanding more of me. Is
Hmm.
volunteering to plan the school fundraiser something that I have bandwidth for right now? No, it's not. Like that's my people pleasing overachiever side coming out. So like saying no, you're pointing yourself. Yep, you
Yeah,
did
I'm
it.
like, yeah, I'm like also coach my daughter's soccer team.
I got
You
pulled
know?
into yes, I got pulled into being the soccer team mom like 2 years ago, and then I had to sub as the coach a little last year, and I'm like, "Why am I saying yes to this?"
I know I'm a yeser for sure.
I have to keep reminding myself that every time I say yes to something, whether that's like a financial commitment or investment or like a time commitment and investment, I'm saying no to something else. So,
Yeah.
I don't know
But
who
and
needs to hear
I
that,
do
but
wanna go, and I want you to keep going where you're going, but I also wanna, like, side note, like, I wanna talk about, like, how do we form new habits, and because I'm like, also, like, the reason I say yes to these things is because I wanna be, like, the parent that shows up for their kid, like, that I wanted when I was little, right? So it comes from
Mhm.
something so much deeper
Yeah.
of why I'm saying yes to these certain things. But go
Yeah.
ahead, like, keep going on what you were talking about.
Well, so evaluating your roles and like
Yeah.
what do you need to just be doing the bare minimum for and what is requiring more of your attention in the season that you're in and letting that be okay if it's going to fluctuate. I think the biggest thing too is involving, if you're a mom, involving your children in whatever you're doing.
Mm. Mhm.
There's no reason that let's say you're doing a home workout. There's no reason you need to be retreating into a room with the door shut to do that. Do it out in the living room with them and invite them to join.
Mhm.
Then they're going to be like, "Oh, mom takes care of herself." Like, okay, like you're so much more is caught than taught. Like my daughter
Mhm.
now is like into pretending that she's working on her little iPad and like has a keyboard that she types on. And it's like, it's so cute. Not that I want her to be a workaholic. I'm really trying to make sure I don't do that. But like they're going to mimic whatever you're doing. So like involving them in that. One of like my favorite things to get my daughter working with me in is cooking dinner. Like she wants to be a chef. She's been saying that for 2 years now. So like maybe that's actually going to be the career path. I don't know. So like she helps me make dinner and she helps me make breakfast and all of that
Mm.
stuff. So whatever you feel like you really want to be doing, can you involve your children or your partner in that as well? And can you make sure that they're seeing you honor your promises to yourself, including them into that too. Like, hey, I'm taking my vitamin. Why don't you take your vitamin? Like, this is something really important for us to do every day. Like, whatever it might be, like, clue them into why you're doing it and why it matters. That's going to really help anchor it in them as well. And it's going to help you show up because you want to be a good role model, right?
Yeah,
I don't know
so
if that
good.
fully answered your question, but I could go
No,
on
I
about
mean,
that.
no, I think it is good, like involving them in your day-to-day roles so that they can see how you're showing up and they can show up too. I think also, like, interestingly enough, like my daughter, she's 9 now, and she's at this age where she's like being more independent. And I talk about how, like, one of the gifts that I wasn't really given is the gift of organization. Like, I'm like, you go in my home, and it's not like messy, but don't open the drawer. But to me, it's like organized chaos because I'm like, well, I know what's in the drawer. It just doesn't look like I know what's in the drawer. But it's funny because she knows that's like a problem I have. And so just like the last few days, she has been organizing, like, she's like, can I organize your makeup? And I'm like,
I
sure.
love
And so
that.
she'll organize it. And then she's like, oh, can I organize your bathroom cabinets? I charge. And I'm like, okay. Like, you are finding a problem I have and creating a solution, which is valuable to me. I will pay you, And so, like, she's helping me, like, while I'm doing my own work, she's working for me almost, like, which
Love
she
that.
finds value in. So, like, I think her seeing me work on myself and the things that I'm good at, and then finding what she's good at, and she can work on those things while I work on my things, has been really awesome too.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it is like, it's also a breath of fresh air to know that, like, nobody's perfect. It is complex, right?
Yep.
And like we have this plan for the day, and sometimes it doesn't go like as we planned.
Yeah.
So, but just having that menu, I think going back to that is just, I think, really key.
And again,
Um,
permission slip too around like the perfection, right? Like you
yes.
feel bad
Yeah.
about putting your kids in front of the TV, but like, yeah, Netflix is babysitting her right now while
Yeah.
I'm here and my husband is working. I can hear him talking in his office too. It is what
Yep.
it is. We
Yep.
got to stop
Hmm.
shaming ourselves.
Yep.
This idea of
Exactly.
perfect parenting, it's not real.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk about how do we form, like, is there a method to forming new habits that you think people need to, because some people just wake up and be like, okay, I'm going to do this today. Do you advise on that? Or is there like a process that people, when they're forming new habits, should go through?
I prefer more of a process and more intentionality behind it because that is what will help make it stick. So,
Mhm.
in the book, I walk you through a 5-step framework, and it's a flexible framework. So, don't let this feel constraining and constricting. So, and on that note, too, like so many times I feel like people hear the word habits and it sounds like a bad word. It's like, ugh, it sounds like a
Yeah.
corset.
Hmm.
No, this is going to actually create more freedom for you in your life. So, the first step in this framework is really becoming aware. What are the things that you want to do that you're not? And what are the things that are holding you back? That might be bad habits or negative feedback loops. Becoming aware of what it is. That's step one. You can't solve anything until that happens. The next piece is alignment. Who are you at your best? Who do you know you were created to be? And then the reverse engineering. Okay, well, if I want to get here and I'm here right now, what do I need to do? Like, what are my steps on that journey? Then the third piece is auditing. Like, look at your day overall, jot down, like, what do I do from the moment my eyes open until the moment my head hits the pillow?
Hmm.
What in here could be taken out and what needs to be added in? Although I would advise taking things out later, and I'll get to that. Fourth piece of it is activation, right? This is where the rubber meets the road and you actually start to design the habits and add them in. And then the final piece is ascension, right? Like once you've been doing this, you've built your self confidence, your trust in yourself. Now you've unlocked a new level. You're going to have new levels of awareness and you begin the process again. So that's at the high level. So to actually create the new habits, what I had said before about the ACTS formula. So,
Hmm.
ambition, capability, trigger, satisfaction. You want to keep this in mind whenever you are creating a new habit because it's rarely a you problem, it's a design problem, right?
What does that
It,
mean?
If you are not doing something that you want to do, you either or are not prompting yourself to do it, or it's too difficult. Let me give you an example that's in the book. This is going to sound so ridiculous, but I'm sure all of you can relate on some level. So since I was a teenager, have had like shoulder pain, probably from being on the computer, probably some
Yep.
trapped emotional crap too, but it's there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it really flared up as I was writing the book, like to the point that I'm a side sleeper and like my hand would go numb, whatever side I was sleeping on, because it was just too tight up here. So one of the habits I have to do is foam roll. That sounds easy enough, right? But I wasn't doing it because I've got long hair and I didn't have a hair tie on. I didn't have anything in the great room where I do it. So I didn't want my hair to get pulled, so I went foam roll. Well, the solution to this is easy. Go walk down the hall, get a hair tie or a hair clip, and do it. So we go back to capability, right? This is always the first thing to look at. What was making this hard to do? Or the acronym you can remember, I love acronyms if you haven't noticed, is WTF. I know you're going to remember that.
For sure.
But not the usual WTF. Where's the friction? What is making this even slightly difficult for me to do? And the answer with the foam rolling example was I didn't have a hair tie because it was 15 seconds down the hall and that was too much. Like I don't live in, Chateau Versailles. It's a nice house, but it's not sprawling. It's not a big deal, right? But it's little things like this that will keep you from doing it. So how could I make this easier moving forward? Put a hair tie or a hair clip in the drawer in that room so I can just grab it when I foam roll. Easy, right? Most of the time it's that simple.
Yeah.
There's such little friction it takes for us to not do something. So that's the thing to really focus on. Now, when you're creating a new behavior, there's ABC. So you want to anchor it. This is from Dr. BJ Fogg, who, by the way, if you read my book and if you want more, read BJ Fogg's book, Tiny Habits. He explains behavior design in like such granular detail. Very, very, very helpful. But you are going to find your anchor behavior. What is something you do day in, day out? So maybe like brushing your teeth in the morning as an example, or what's something you do day in and day out?
Well, definitely brush my teeth.
Yeah, like
Wash my face.
so non-negotiable, right?
Yeah, like put deodorant on.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know. Like, I am kind of like more of a spontaneous person too. But well, okay, I map out my day usually. Like, I am like a take a shower at 6:15 kind of person. Brush your teeth. Like, I'm
You
that
do
type
that
of person.
at 6:15 every day?
No, but like I'll
Oh.
write down the time that I'm gonna do it. Like
Oh.
I like will plan it out to like, okay, at 8:15 you're doing this kind of situation.
Oh, and do you actually execute on it?
Most of the time, although I do leave flexibility because I'm a mom, right? So I leave flexibility in there. So I'll give it more time than I think it needs, and then I'll like it's like almost like a reward system to myself so that like, oh, I have more time to now do this, kind of situation. Because I mean, I've learned this. I was a teen mom. So I had my son on a Monday, my first year of college, and I went back to college the next Monday. And so I had to be this way, or I would never have accomplished like what I had. I
Yeah.
had to literally be like 6:15, feed the baby, like 7:15, take a shower, like 7:30, like feed baby and also take notes on chapter 1, like, and I would literally stick to it.
Oh, wow. I love that you have that tool in your belt. That's like a sledgehammer of efficiency. I love
Yeah.
that.
I mean, but then there's times where like that's why I'm saying like when there's routine, like during school, right? Like I'm like get up, work out. I listen to Daily Hope every morning. It's Pastor Rick's it's like a daily devotional. That's how I start my morning every morning talking about habits, right? And just to start it with something positive, and then I put my workout clothes on. I get, even if it's 20 minutes, just do something to move my body. I'm flexible with it so that it's not like depending on the day and what time my day starts and stuff like that. But once I get the kids to school, then I'm like, oh, awesome. Now I can plan this time because I'm by myself, right? Like nobody's until the school calls and they're like, your son has a headache, so it's like, you have to be so flexible, right? But, during the school year, it's much easier for me to use those tools because it's a little more structure, right? But when
Yeah.
summer comes, like I'm telling you, some of these like things I like to do that fill me up and recharge my battery, like kind of feel like they go out the window. And by July, I'm like, girl, you need to like, recharge.
Yeah. Well, that's why the
But I love
baseline
the
is so important
seasons.
too.
The seasons make so much sense to me. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, okay. Well, now I can give myself some compassion on that. Like, oh, maybe
Yeah.
I'm just normal. That's okay.
You're just normal. And,
Yeah.
do you remember that classic movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray where he wakes up
Yeah.
every day and it's the
I
same?
totally do.
You
Yeah.
know, we approach habits and our routines like that's reality, but like,
Mhm.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've got good anchors. So like whatever is something that you do reliably. It could even be
Mhm.
like you come into your office and you sit at your desk. That's an
Mm.
anchor behavior right there. So
Mhm.
could you layer in the new habit and behavior that you want to do with that so that they become paired, right?
Mm.
And then every time you do the new behavior, you celebrate. So again, it might be that example of like you throw the wadded up paper in the garbage and you sink it, whatever that celebration
I
looks
love
like.
that. Mhm.
It's really important though. I want to like triple underline this. When you celebrate doing a desired behavior, you have to do it like immediately, like
Mm.
while you remember to do it, while you were doing it, or like milliseconds after you complete it. Otherwise, your reward center in your brain won't make the association. So
Mm.
don't do something like, well, if I work out every day this month, I'm going to go to Nordstrom and have a shopping spree. That's not
Not gonna
that's
work.
celebrating, that's a reward, but it's not going to make the connection.
That makes sense. Okay. I love that. So find something that you can do in the moment that rewards your brain.
Yeah. It could
I
even
like
just be
that.
like, "Oh, yes, I'm so like a silent thing."
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be anything elaborate, but
Or
yeah.
even like a like I don't know what's popping up in my brain right now is like I always have like a pad of paper and like even just like a tally mark, right? Like, oh, good job. It's almost like
Yeah.
when you're in school.
Yeah. Oh yeah, actually I heard Gretchen Rubin say this many, many years ago, a to-do list instead of a to-do
Oh,
list.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a
Ta-da.
lot of satisfaction in that too. But if you remember nothing else from this episode, celebrate the crap out of your new behavior every single time you do it. So important.
Love that. Okay, I want to go back really quick to auditing and I want to focus on like, okay, how do we learn to let go of a like habit that doesn't serve us?
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, and so that we can make room for those that do. And a lot of times, right, like these are subconscious things like we've kind of touched on that we don't even know that is a habit but is not serving us.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk some examples. Okay, here's one that's really common. When you're looking at your day holistically, like where are areas that like suck time? Here's the
Uh,
example probably everyone relates to. Doom scrolling, or not even doom
oh
scrolling, just like
gosh, yeah.
scrolling social media or picking your phone up just out of like habit. Like those are things that maybe you could find a way to let go of.
Mhm.
And by
Yeah.
designing your way out of it, making it harder to do, or removing the trigger or prompt. Maybe that's like turning off notifications, for instance.
Mm. Okay.
For me, it's like physically putting it somewhere else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
I
just
think there's like
one
settings
example.
now on your phone because like I know like I feel like nowadays like we're all guilty of this. I think there's like a setting someone was telling me that you can like go on and say like you're only allowed to be on this app for so many minutes and then it will just like not let you go on there anymore, which I was like, I love that idea.
Oh yeah, actually, one of my coaching clients, she uses this. It's called Opal, and it's an app that
Oh.
you install on your phone, and you can make it like I don't know the exact terminology, but like lenient to strict. So if you say
Mhm.
like I don't want to be on Instagram between these hours, if you make it strict, it like won't let you do it at all. If you make it lenient, you can like, click out of it and stay in there. But yeah, that's a
Mm.
great way of doing it. I also love for removing like the trigger of like the prompt and the queue of notifications going into a focus mode on iPhone. So like do not
Mm.
disturb. I don't get anything unless it's from like my immediate family and there could be like an emergency, for instance.
Mhm.
Or I'll
Mhm.
have like a work mode where I only get work type of notifications or like Slack or, Gmail, whatever it might be. So you can kind of manipulate the phone now a little bit. But yeah. Or like let's say that you aren't sleeping well because you're on your phone at night before bed. Okay. Can you literally like make it to where you can't be on your phone in bed, either
Yeah.
in the morning or at night? I'm not even kidding. I have a 6-inch charging cord because I
Oh,
can't do that. I can't
smart.
scroll from bed.
Yeah, that's so smart.
And I'm more motivated to wake up to a fully charged phone than to keep getting a dopamine hit. So
For sure.
like kind of manipulating the ambition factor of it. Like what are you more motivated to do? So
Yeah.
those are just a couple examples, but I think looking like zooming out, do you have any habits that are dominoes that like if you do them, everything else suffers or improves? So, like a negative domino, I talk about this at length in the book, for me was drinking. No
Mm.
one would have ever looked at me and been like, oh, she has a drinking problem. But
Mhm.
I did. Like, I just drink stuff really fast and I had a high tolerance.
Yeah.
Recipe for disaster. And when I was drinking too much, I would wake up late. I would lack energy. I would eat crap all day. It had this negative cascade through my life, right?
Yeah.
But then there's positive dominoes. Maybe going to the gym is a positive domino because when you do that, you're drinking more water, you're probably eating better, you're probably sleeping better. So sometimes if you can find a positive domino or a negative domino, can you add that habit in or take that habit out so that the rest of the things you want to do sort of take care of themselves without as much effort?
I love that. That's so good. What about for people that are just feeling like stuck or overwhelmed? What advice would you give them to like start making small but impactful changes through habits?
That is such a great question. If you can find one thing that you've really been wanting to do, but that feels daunting, can you narrow in on that and then make it microscopic? What's the
Mm.
nano version of it? Like the earlier example of you want to walk a mile a day?
Mhm.
Okay. Microscopic version of that is putting your shoes on.
Yeah, I love that.
If it's I want to exercise in the morning, maybe the microscopic version of that is having a mat that you can lay on, and maybe you just lay on the mat. You're probably going to do
Mhm.
more, but maybe not.
Yeah.
So narrow in on like what do you think is the biggest drain on your energy right now because you're not doing something, and then adding that in. And I always advise add something in before you try to break habits,
Mm.
because when you add in this minuscule, tiny nano habit, you build the self-confidence, you build the self-trust, and that's actually going to help you a lot when it comes to stopping a behavior.
Oh, okay. Good to know. I love that. So, well, this has been so fun. And we are really talking a lot about your book, right? Higher Self Habits.
Yeah, this is
Um,
all in there.
yeah. So, how can people get your book, find out more, get to know you better, and all that you do?
Yeah, well, I probably the easiest way is to go to my website. It's alessiacitro.com/book, and it's ALESSIACITRO.com/book. That'll take you to all the links, or you can just look up Higher Self Habits on Amazon. It'll come up there. One thing that I have added on to the website recently is a quiz to find out what your
Hmm.
habits spirit animal is. So you
Oh,
can
I
go
love
to
that.
alessiacitro.com/quiz to find that. And then I'm super active on Instagram. I would love to connect with you there. Just Alessia Citro and 2 underscores. Launching a habits community. It might even be live by the time this episode airs, just to give you the accountability, the community, all the mindset tools, pep talks that you need to make this stuff happen. And I'll be launching a coaching program too pretty soon. I'm piloting it now, and it should be ready for prime time here shortly. So if you need help with
That
your
is so
habits,
cool.
would love to do that.
Oh my goodness. Well, this has been such a treat. I feel like I've learned so much. I know our listeners have loved this as well. So thank you so much for coming on, for sharing all your insights with us. It's been great.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was so fun, and I can't wait for you to come on my show too.
I know it's going to be so fun and we get to talk again. So I'm
Yeah,
all for that.
love it. And no small talk because I think you're
No
allergic to
small
it too.
talk.
As it,
Yeah, I
yeah,
am.
yeah,
I'm like, tell me more.
yeah.
But
Let's go
all
deep
right.
right off the bat.
I'm here for it. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in today. Remember, no matter where you are in your journey, small, consistent habits can lead to big transformative changes. Stay committed, stay inspired, and until next time, keep living life without secrets. Hey there, it's Jillian from Life Without Secrets. Ever feel like you and your partner aren't quite on the same page? Well, you're not alone, and that's exactly why I created our latest issue of Truthful magazine. It's packed with insights and stories about bridging that gap and finding a deeper connection. We're diving into real conversations about needs, feelings, and how honest dialogue can rekindle that closeness that you've been missing. Why not explore this together? Go grab your free copy right now at lifewithoutsecrets.com and turn those pages into shared moments. Can't wait for you to dive in and share your thoughts with me.